Welcome to Integrating SAP S/4HANA Cloud from Digital Core to Edge, made simple. My name is Andreas Muno. I'm part of the product management team for S/4HANA Cloud, and I'm dedicated to the topic of integration, which is not an easy topic to be dedicated to. As usual, I have to say a few words about the legal disclaimer. You may hear a few things that I'm saying today that have not yet otherwise been disclosed, that may be on our roadmap, but everything about the future is uncertain. Undue reliance on anything about the future, that really says. Don't purchase anything because I just said so, right? Our agenda for today is a little bit about the value proposition, about the Intelligent Enterprise Suite, and how the integration lifecycle is going to look like for S/4HANA and S/4HANA Cloud, and what we have in store for open integration, and then I may have a demo at the end, a third-party integration example. And that should take no more than 45 minutes altogether. After that, I open it up to your questions, as usual. All right, the value proposition. The digital core, S/4HANA Cloud at the digital core. So you have heard from Jürgen Müller this morning about the intelligent enterprise and what we're all doing here in the area of operations and experience and intelligence. I mean, he was mostly focused on intelligence. With the intelligent enterprise and the intelligent enterprise suite, he did mention that we want to come out with a couple of end-to-end scenarios, and I'm going to talk about them in just a moment more in detail. But we'll have a couple of scenarios that will go across SAP applications and be fully integrated all the way from the database to the user experience. So you will find intelligence built into those applications, of course. You might find some level of experience analysis and so forth integrated in those applications as well. So this is basically the intelligent enterprise, how shall I put it, from the internal SAP perspective, right? We bring our applications together, and that is the focus of what this intelligent enterprise delivers in new abilities to you. What we don't talk about as much is how do you integrate to the intelligent enterprise? So how do you interface to it? How do you organize anything that goes in and comes out of the intelligent enterprise with further means? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. One aspect of what we will be talking about later is the open APIs. So this whole concept of using an open and flexible framework of integrating with applications of the suite. And another one is intelligent RPA, automating business processes across applications, be they within SAP or beyond. Then we have a whole suite of integration capabilities. We have BPM available for extending business processes across applications. So when it comes to this notion of the Intelligent Enterprise Suite, we basically look at these four main scenarios, end-to-end scenarios of lead to cash, source to pay, total workforce, and design to operate. And as you can see, they do combine multiple SAP-branded solutions. So here under the label of customer experience, of course, we have our C4 suite, we have S/4HANA. Here for spend management, of course, again, we have S4 for like the core of the operational procurement, but also the Ariba network and Fieldglass and Concur. And then under people management, of course, you have some S4 for time management, for example, but also success factors Field Glass again, and Concur for the time management and the travel management, right? And then in Design to Operate, you have all kinds of other applications of the SAP brand. What brings these applications together now is, in essence, a different way how we implement technology standards, or sometimes it's the first time that we actually vowed to say we orchestrate these applications according to specific new standards that apply to all of those applications under the SAP umbrella. So one of the first remarkable aspects is we are providing for an industry reference architecture across all of the applications in these 4 scenarios. And we will have all the APIs that connect these applications aligned so that the semantics and the meaning really of the respective business objects and their operations will be exactly the same on the left and on the right-hand side of the API, of the integration. And we achieve that by aligning our domain models. So a business partner is a business partner, be it in S4, be it in SuccessFactors, be it in Concur, be it in Ariba, or anywhere else in the SAP family. Right? So we are making sure that when we talk about one business object with a particular SAP name, it is the same, the exact same meaning, the exact same semantics. And we build out respective services on the SAP Cloud Platform to then spread those master data, for example, through the different applications that would need them. We have a master data service, a set of master data services then available that cater to those aligned domain models. So, for example, the business partner will then be sent to SuccessFactors as a worker, will be sent to S4 in the respective format, or to Concur in whichever format they need it in. But it will always be the same business partner. You only have to have one service, basically, that you need to have available. Of course, the security and identity management will cover all of these applications, so you can have a single sign-on and a sound role management model for all of these applications across these applications, and monitoring shall be end-to-end. And where we can, we will automate the setup of the integrated suite in as much as we can. So that will be, of course, an effort of a couple of release cycles, right? So don't expect this to be done by the end of this year. Expect it to be done in some of the next years, right, as a complete cycle. We will definitely start delivering something in the total workforce space and source to pay early next year, some of it. That's the idea. And to give you some idea how these business processes actually look like, here an example from Travel to Reimburse. So where we really try to orchestrate the entire business process across multiple applications, from the organizational and budget planning perspective, where you have onboarding of employees, so they would have to be orchestrated across application here, so the employee groups would have to be applied to a particular new employee and provided with the appropriate roles. And you have to do that, of course, in SuccessFactors and in Concur. So when it comes then later to reimbursing that employee, that it goes to the right cost center and so forth. Right? Same here when it comes to budget planning, you would want to have S/4HANA Cloud, where you do the financials, and in your analytics, where you do the planning, you want to be able to do that in one uniform way. So once you have your budget planning under control, now people in your organization can go ahead and plan their travel and book their travel, request it all. Most of that is going to happen and already happens today in SAP Concur. Then during the travel, they would use that TripIt app to basically make sure that they capture all their expenses. Oh, well, there it is again with the capture the receipts and so forth. So in this fashion, I'm not going to go into further details, but in this fashion, we will come out with all of these respective sub-processes of those integrated scenarios in travel, in total workforce management, what I just talked about here. But across all of these end-to-end scenarios, we will bring the respective applications together and make them a series of complete scenarios that you can then implement together for the best business value. So in the past, when you implemented S/4HANA Cloud, you would typically go to the SAP best practices and then look there for your implementation guide, right? With this year, we basically started making available a different way how to implement integrated scenarios of S/4HANA Cloud. You may have heard about the Cloud Integration Application Service, CS, maybe. And that is basically a way how to automate the implementation of integrated scenarios much better. But you can now have something like a workflow really that helps the different consultants or agents in your organization that set up integrated scenarios. You can orchestrate their tasks in a much more streamlined fashion, and in some cases you actually have complete steps automated that then will configure your solution on the left and on the right-hand side of an integrated scenario. And that should make your cost of implementation going forward much lower. And of course your projects much quicker than in the past. So and with these two different portals, with the SAP Best Practice Portal, BPX, and the API Business Hub, we have basically two different portals for two different types of personas, as we call them, right? So the best practices, they cater really to the enterprise architects, to the business process experts, to figure out where is the business value in any particular business scenario. While here on the API Business Hub, you find the details like flows, so integration flows, pre-configured ones. You find the actual APIs underneath the integration layers, right? So, and then the CDS views and the business events, which you can choose for integration scenarios, for your own custom integration scenarios. On the left-hand side, in the SAP Best Practice Explorer, you find the best, what we consider the best practice integration within the current level of the Intelligent Enterprise Suite. So basically before we have all these 4 scenarios mapped out further, with their implementation guides, with their business process views, and so forth. And we will see how we will, in the future, bring those scenarios out to you. So let me just show you the Best Practice Explorer real quick. So that should be live, yes. So the Best Practice Explorer is typically on the latest version. So you see that. And when you actually log on to the Best Practice Explorer, you get a little bit more content. And you see here, and I'll do that in a moment, you see here we have a toggle here with S/4HANA Cloud Integration. What you usually would get is the line of business view. I keep it here on S/4HANA Cloud Integration, so here you really see all the different integration aspects that we currently cover with S/4HANA Cloud. That's in essence the precursor to the Intelligent Enterprise Suite. So we didn't dare really renaming this at this point, but it's like this is as close as you get at the moment, right? So you have a whole set of integrated scenarios across the different SAP branded applications. Here at the top, you find some introduction into specific areas that we have integrated with some topics highlighted, like EDI, for example, or here the vast capabilities with Ariba, or the very intricate integration with SuccessFactors that we have a lot of demand for, and also for which countries specific integration scenarios are available. Because in these integration scenarios, what you always have to consider is, well, within the SAP portfolio, not all applications have the same coverage of all countries. Right? And so you have to actually figure that out, what works together for which particular country that you want to implement in, right? So when you look at, it's quite a portfolio here of integrated solutions. Let me just highlight a few things here. So we do have a whole area that talks about EDI integration. And of course, EDI integration is not SAP to SAP integration, right? Within the SAP portfolio, we integrate with our own APIs, like that's typically OData or SOAP APIs, depending on the scenario. With EDI, right now, we would use SOAP APIs, so that's the asynchronous kind of connection that you would typically expect for EDI integration. S/4HANA Cloud itself does not do anything EDI per se, right? We don't do anything EDI per se in S/4HANA Cloud. We provide for SOAP APIs, and then you as a customer or as an integrator, you need to provide for the integration to the appropriate EDI format. However, and this is part of this scenario explanation, however, there are available plenty of EDI formats pre-configured for you on the SAP Cloud Platform. And the mapping is already pre-mapped on the SAP Cloud Platform. So we have content available on the API Business Hub that you can use together with the SAP Cloud Platform to make those mappings that you will need in each and every single one of your EDI projects. No EDI project without mapping exercise, right, so far. So those mappings are available on the API Business Hub, and we have actually a somewhat intelligent content advisor built into the SAP Cloud Platform integration that helps with the mapping. So, and it's somewhat intelligent, I say, because it learns from mappings that customers do. It learns what the fields, like over time it learns what the fields mean, and it will suggest those field mappings between different applications and different EDI formats.
Now we are talking about S/4HANA Cloud, right? So
yes.
S/4HANA on-premise, do they support the same set of APIs as published?
Yeah, so the question is, does S/4HANA on-premise support the same set of APIs that S/4HANA Cloud does? That is a lengthy answer that you're provoking here, and it will have to be lengthy. So S/4HANA Cloud provides for all the new code that goes into S/4HANA on-premise. However, S/4HANA on-premise has a history with APIs that mostly have been available with SAP ERP, SAP ECC. So you can use in S/4HANA on-premise, you can use all these well-known APIs, old or new, right, that you have always been using within your ERP system, except for those that are on the so-called simplification list. And you find on the help.sap.com for S/4HANA on-premise what is on the simplification list. So which parts of S/4HANA have been redesigned for the entire application area so that new APIs had been provided there. So you have all the old APIs from ERP, all the new, or most of the new ones from S/4HANA Cloud are also available in S/4HANA on-premise. There are a few exceptions. So there are a few exceptions where The new code that comes from S/4HANA Cloud to S/4HANA on-premise once a year does not include specific APIs. It is an exception. And it's usually the case when it comes to the outbound SOAP APIs. And that is because the output management of S/4HANA Cloud and S/4HANA on-premise works differently, right? So that's really where the exception is. It's like where we have outbound SOAP APIs in S/4HANA Cloud that we haven't been able yet to make work properly in S/4HANA on-premise. It's a small subset, very small subset of APIs, but it's important to know, right, which they are. So otherwise, we have also provided for best practices for integration with third-party systems. And here it's basically just one side of that integration, because we usually don't know the other side all that well, and we can't really provide for best practices to integrate to something like Salesforce.com. We're not supposed to do that. So therefore, we have looked at partners to get that content created. So you may find some of that content either among those best practices here, or on the API Business Hub among the open APIs. I'll talk about open APIs and open connectors. Open connectors is the term, a little bit later as well. So let's just, and before I forget about it, and we do, of course, have a whole section on integration with SAP on-premise applications, because in some cases you would want to combine the two, have a hybrid landscape, and so under this section you find a lot of that. When we open these up, we find something like sourcing with SAP Ariba Sourcing, for example. So the way we're structuring these terms is really best explained by, we try to put the business purpose first, and then we look into the details. And they should all come with some business benefits. It should be easy for you to really figure out why would I want to have this type of scenario established here. And then for the business architects, it usually comes with a process flow. So it's really easy for you as an architect, right, or as a business process expert to figure out what processes do we have available, what is enabled here, where do we have automation in the business process, and how does this integrated process, how does it benefit my business just by looking at those process diagrams, right? So that helps usually quite a bit in those assessments. And if you want to go further and you are actually logged on, you can then find those setup guides. Whoops, that is on. Oh yeah, I'm not, this is not my computer, so I don't have single sign-on here. So I have to just talk about it. So here under the details, you will, if you have the authorization, also find the configuration guidance. So as someone who needs to implement the solution, you would find here, how do I actually do that? And with the Cloud Integration Application Service, automation service, we provided for an accelerator to make this integration even faster. All right, enough about that. Let's go over to the SAP API Business Hub. And here you find, for S/4HANA Cloud, you find different sections. Now you find over 303 APIs. Right now it's exactly 303, but you can make more, and I'll tell you in a second how. So you have these released OData and SOAP APIs. In addition, for integration with on-premise SAP applications, you have the whole set of BAPIs and IDOC available that you may have already always known from ECC, as I said, with the exception of those on the simplification list. But wait, there's more. So we also have these business events now available. They are currently in beta release, which means you cannot yet use them productively. And I think I'm going to talk about that in just a bit, a little bit more in detail. But you find also here all kinds of integration content that is actually CDS views. So we have this virtual data model with S/4HANA Cloud and S/4HANA that allows us to basically see the tables similar to how we saw tables back in ECC, even though the underlying database doesn't have any tables whatsoever. Right, so we basically virtualized, we modeled this structure, and you can use these tables, at least the ones that are released in a released status. You can use those CDS views, as they're called, to create your own read APIs, their OData read APIs. And that gives you quite a lot of flexibility here. There are plenty of those. I'll show you in a second how that looks. So we have like plenty of S/4HANA Cloud CDS views, hundreds and hundreds of them. Right, so you get a better idea how they work. So if you need to extend or enhance the ability to read any data tables from the outside, it's through these CDS views. Oh, and before I forget it, so there, and yet, wait, yes?
How is the API hub related to SAP Graph?
How is it related? So how is the API Business Hub related to?
SAP Graph.
SAP Graph. That's a good question. I don't know yet. I mean, I heard about the SAP Graph today for the first time, so I don't know that yet. My hope and desire is it shall be another abstraction layer over all API functions in all SAP applications across the board. So when we look at the specific APIs that we have here in S/4HANA Cloud, for example, and I'm just going to grab the first one just because. So no, that was a bad one because it's a SOAP API. It doesn't look as nice. So, but you still have here available the whole data structure. You can, you can analyze it all the way, right, with the field names and the field lengths and the field types. So it's all referenced. There's also, with each API comes an extensive business documentation that's here on help.sap.com that shows you exactly how to use those APIs for your business purposes and explains most of the fields again in more detail, sometimes even with specific explanations how to use the different statuses and the different aspects of that API, right? And let's pick a better one here. So if you look at a typical OData service, you have this well-known Swagger format. I think they just renamed it to something else, like Open API format, I believe. So, but that's in essence what this stands for. And you have all these different structures within the API available here, right? That you can take advantage of. and for something like the business partner. So you have these different attributes and parameters. If you're logged in, you can actually try this API out right here. Again, I'm not logged in, so I can't do that right here. But you find all the different types right here, and you can even dig deeper into the meanings of this business partner in this case. When you click it up here in the model wrapper, right? It tells you about the length and some more explanation how the different field data are actually being used. And maybe another aspect. So the read, so the get parameters here, the get operation you can test here against SAP's own sandbox. So we have test data available that you can take advantage of and just test out, like with the first, when you try it out with the first, whatever, top 5 business objects, and that gives you usually a pretty good idea. But then if you want to, you can configure your own environment if you want to actually post against a business object, a particular business object, right? You can configure your own S/4HANA Cloud environment in here and test that way. All right. We were pretty focused so far on the implementation of S/4HANA Cloud integrated scenarios, and we did that so far. So we try to automate these steps a little more with a configuration bot. So in the past we talked about CIAS, the configuration integration automation service. That's quite a mouthful. We plan on further automating the different configuration steps in all of the respective applications. So with these, we try to use our own intelligent robotic process automation in the process. So to orchestrate these different configuration steps even further and make them more automatic in their use by you, our customer and partner. Right? So configuration bots for S4, configuration bots for other suite applications of the Intelligent Enterprise Suite, and potentially you can use that same bot technology to record your own configuration of your other applications, your non-SAP applications. A pretty similar approach we also want to apply to testing. We have learned from you customers that testing, especially regression testing of integrated scenario, is still a pretty big problem. Right now, in most cases, you can automate any kind of process step within your S/4HANA Cloud application, but you can't do the same thing for the other side of an integration. So your process stops, your automated process stops wherever it hits another application, right? So we're trying to change that and make sure that after any upgrade, you will be able to automate all of your S/4HANA Cloud related scenarios, whether they're all within S/4HANA Cloud or integrated with other SAP and third-party applications. That should help, and I hope we're doing the right thing here. I hope you're not falling asleep on me right now. So this was about the most exciting thing I had to say today. Where we're also going to go is we want to actually make sure that across the Intelligent Enterprise Suite we have sound monitoring established, right? So we do have right now for our on-premise customers, we have the Solution Manager with its monitoring capabilities. So that's pretty familiar to those of you who are running on-premise systems. However, in the cloud, we were lacking, and we're heavily investing in this area, so that we will eventually have something like application monitoring, integration and message monitoring, and eventually even some business process monitoring available that will allow you to go through this value chain of monitoring, diagnosing, correcting issues, and improving business processes. And these improving business processes really in the sense of you optimize business processes where they have bottlenecks today, and you will be provided with suggestions how to change the business processes to remove those bottlenecks and basically streamline your business processes going forward. So that's parts of that are still in development, and it shall come out, I believe, earlier next year in a complete application. It will definitely be called something like SAP Cloud Application Landscape Management. That seems to be already clear. Oh, and it may augment what you already, if you already have the SAP Solution Manager available today and running today, you can basically run them or run these applications in parallel and on top for your cloud applications. They may have a different name then, but it's the same concept here. So for those of our customers who want to move more to the cloud, who want to move from their on-premise systems, from their on-premise landscape into the cloud, and need some level of understanding how the interfaces that they have been using in the past, and the applications and the business partners they've been integrating in the past, how that is going to change when they move to S/4HANA Cloud. We do have a service available, so that's a consulting service, and we have an expert on the consulting service right here in the audience, just so happens. So if you have any questions about this integration assessment, please turn to him after this show. So you find in the documentation here is a particular wiki. I'll just bring that up real quick. That's a public wiki, I think, that basically is supposed to explain how this repository approach works, and how to do the analysis for the switch from one to the other landscape. Coming to open integration. So as I said, on the API Business Hub, we have available those public APIs, those CDS views, and right now we also have the business events. And these business events, you can connect them basically to the SAP Cloud Platform Event Hub, and that way trigger further events, further action in the process chain. And they're in beta, I should mention. They're in beta right now and not fully released because they're basically the latest of the latest. So SAP is part of a consortium that came up with a new standard for these business events called Cloud Events. So it's, I think, at cloudevents.io. And this new industry standard is still in its version 0.3, and it's supposed to mature to version 1.0 later this year. So you should expect the SAP business events to conform to that standard probably in the first half or so next year. right? And then, of course, they will all be available for productive use. So they get out of beta sometime next year. Please use them in the meantime and tell us what you think of them, right? Try them out, kick the tires on them. We need to know if we're on the right track here. In fact, this Thursday, I have a special event on business events. That's basically a community, what do we call it now? It's a meetup. So come to my meetup if you're interested in contributing your business scenarios for business events and a business event-driven architecture. I mentioned it earlier, but I need to mention it again. So we do have still all the legacy APIs available in S/4HANA Cloud, for which we have business processes. The legacy APIs are meant to only be used for integration with SAP on-premise applications. So that is basically for your two-tier scenarios, as we also call them, in a hybrid landscape. So that's their purpose. However, we have had it a couple of times already that customers had asked us, can I also use these legacy APIs for my third-party application integration? And the general answer is, well, yeah, you can if you promise that you will look out for the SOAP APIs or otherwise APIs that we will come out with to replace them. So what we mean here with exceptions is, yes, we grant exceptions, but our long-term roadmap, our long-term strategy is to replace these old-fashioned, these legacy APIs in S/4HANA Cloud with modern APIs. And modern, what we mean by modern is usually OData, and going forward it should be OData version 4. Right now we support OData version 2 with S/4HANA Cloud. And SOAP APIs, the future of the future, so somewhat down the road, we want to conform to and narrow down to OData version 4. Once we have that sound in our architecture guidelines, which is supposed to happen somewhat later this year. So the very future, like the midterm future for our APIs is OData version 4. And now I have to say another however. However, as long as we haven't deprecated the other APIs yet, so the SOAP and the OData version 2 APIs yet, you can still use them. Once we do deprecate them, we shall also provide for alternative APIs in typically OData version 4. All right, now, SAP Intelligent Robotic Process Automation. So with this sort of newish application, IRPA, we enable recording of applications like on the user interface level. And then we have a couple of other features that enable you to transfer data into S4 or transfer data out of S4 like from tables, so from spreadsheets, or as part of an actual API integration. So wherever we do not yet have an API available, but we have a UI available for S/4HANA Cloud, you can use this IRPA, this Intelligent Robotic Process Automation, and make integration happen anyway. Right? So this is basically a mitigation way. And you cannot have an API available to you right away. It usually takes a couple months before we release a new API. when you request it, you can still use this IRPA in the meantime. And we do have predefined content for IRPA available also as a package on the Best Practice Explorer. Okay, I already talked about the API Business Hub and what it can do. Now let's talk a little bit about these open connectors. So we basically understood that there are many non-SAP applications available out there in the market that you would like to integrate with, that you would like to use in your integration scenarios. So we partnered up with a pretty big provider of standardized APIs to those applications, and they allowed us to use them with our SAP Cloud Platform. So you now can tap into a huge number of those pre-built connectors of these non-SAP applications, more than 150. I believe that's an old number. It may already be more than 175 non-SAP applications that connect to usually top SaaS, top software as a service applications. And it pretty much works like that. So you have your SAP suite, your SAP applications here on the left-hand side. You have SAP Cloud Platform integration capabilities here more in the center. And then the open connectors that normalize authentication, that allow for bulk operations, harmonize your error handling, and give it basically back to the cloud platform. And then you have a whole big bunch of third-party applications that are quite popular in the market. And I should say, in this session, in 202, you shall learn more about those open connectors. All right, so in the demo, I'm going to use a pattern of an integration flow for SAP Cloud Platform integration, and then configure an S/4HANA cloud system to use that integration pattern in order to send company codes from S/4HANA Cloud to a third-party application, where here the SAP Cloud Platform integration is basically standing in for that third-party system. Let's see how that looks in the demo. Yes. So this is like offline demo mode. I have to apologize that it's not online, but that's as good as I could get it. So what we have here is an SAP Cloud Platform integration client, right? That's basically your work environment in the SAP Cloud Platform. And you would look for a package, or you would have a package created for your purpose of making an integration flow happen. And here you basically want to add an artifact. So we are editing this one, and just add a new integration flow to this package. And we called it something like consume company codes. And then we work on this iFlow. You may have seen like the pattern of an iFlow in general before. So that's basically how they look like. So the sender in this case is an S/4HANA cloud system. We use a SOAP API to make this integration happen. And then we configure the connection to our S/4HANA cloud system. And we bring a script into this iFlow. So it's just a simple Groovy script that we drag into our iFlow and onto the iFlow, actually onto the connector. And now we can basically just go ahead and deploy this. And then, of course, we will have to do some more. So in our S/4HANA Cloud system now, we have to configure the communication scenario or the communication arrangement. And the communication arrangement consists of a user specific to the integration, the communication arrangement, a communication system, and then you bring them all together with the scenario ID in a communication arrangement. So we're here using the CPI user, as we call him, and then define the communication system. So, and of course, in this case, our communication system is a CPI system. It could be a third-party system just as well. And then back in the integration content, we actually have to copy the respective aspects of that target system. So we can identify that target system in our S/4HANA Cloud communication arrangement. So here we would need a certificate to connect to the CPI system. So we basically create this certificate integration right here in this communication system. And once we did that, we can combine it all to a communication arrangement. So these different scenario IDs, you find them also in the API Business Hub with the APIs, the individual APIs. They basically tell you which scenarios are available, what kind of combination of APIs belong to a specific intended business scenario. In this case, this particular one was the one for cost centers in finance. Company codes in finance. Now all we need is a replication model, and once we have that in place, we should be able to deploy it. But yes, we first need our authentication certificate for the SAP Cloud Platform integration and map it to the particular user that we had previously entered. Okay, and now we actually have that replication almost active. So, of course, in this case, our communication system is a CPI system. It could be a third-party system just as well. And then back in the integration content, we actually have to copy the respective aspects of that target system. So we can identify that target system in our S/4HANA Cloud communication arrangement. So here we would need a certificate to connect to the CPI system. So we basically create this certificate integration right here in this communication system. And once we did that, we can combine it all to a communication arrangement. So these different scenario IDs, you find them also in the API Business Hub with the APIs, the individual APIs. They basically tell you which scenarios are available, what kind of combination of APIs belong to a specific intended business scenario. In this case, this particular one was the one for cost centers in finance. Company codes in finance. Now all we need is a replication model, and once we have that in place, we should be able to deploy it. But yes, we first need our authentication certificate for the SAP Cloud Platform integration and map it to the particular user that we had previously entered. Okay, and now we actually have that replication almost active. So now we basically have triggered the replication, and now we can monitor that replication for this particular model that we just configured. And we can see it was successful, so we can actually select further details of this replication. And in message monitoring, we would now find that our replication was successful. And we could even have a look at the payload and then see what exact data have been transferred. So that would then end our demo. So we see these company codes, these 1010 and further down 1710 have been replicated out to the cloud platform. All right. Okay. Good. So whenever you do a S/4HANA Cloud integration, make sure you check the integration checklist, where you basically, it helps you determine where can you find information about your integration scope. Is there any best practice available? Which APIs should you be using? And then once you have identified your APIs, what iFlows are already available that you can tap into. Basically, the rationale is, in essence, go from what is already available as much as there is available, and then go to the most special ones. And if there is nothing available yet, check the product roadmap and, well, wait for it to be delivered. If there is nothing available to you at this point, look for the customer influence portal and request the API or the fields on the API, the SAP fields on the API. You can often enhance existing SAP APIs with your own fields. So the fields that SAP does not have anywhere on the CDS views or the database or your UI. But if you need to have SAP add SAP fields to SAP APIs, just check it in on the Customer Influence portal. Read this integration checklist blog. It's actually fun to read. We made little videos that make it even easier to understand and consume. Check out the roadmaps for APIs. So we don't have a specific roadmap for APIs, so go to the S/4HANA Cloud roadmap and look for the chapter on APIs or look for the line of business innovations that we published there. All right, and with that, there are plenty of areas that help you more experience integration of S/4HANA Cloud, S/4HANA, the Intelligent Enterprise, extending S/4HANA. That's my other session. This session here will be repeated again on Wednesday, so tomorrow. There are many more SAP websites available on integration, and there's a whole S/4HANA Cloud community available that helps you with integration questions as well. With that, thank you very much for your attention on this session. Contact my colleague Mert Turan for further inquiries on this topic, and I appreciate your feedback for CAA 123.